tell us about that time 5 years ago when you went to the doctor with a concern and then it ended up being cancer. Can you tell us more on this?
Yeah, so I had noticed a mole on the side of my neck was getting itchy, and so I put it off for a while just with the busyness of life, but I finally thought, okay, I need to go make an appointment. So I went to my GP and they took a photo of it and sent it off. And I guess whoever analysed it thought it looked concerning, and so I got brought into another doctor's clinic and had it removed, and waited a little while for the results, and it looked like it was just an in situ melanoma, which is like stage 0, so very early, but it was at the same time that COVID was happening, and so everything was kind of shutting down, and so I think there was a little bit more of a delay than there would have been, but I finally got called in to just have an appointment with the surgeon to see how close to my ear this mole was, whether they would need to do plastic surgery to cover it. And while I was there, I said, actually, there's been a little bit of a lump raise up on my throat. Is that something to be of concern? So she took a little biopsy of that at the time and gave me a phone call a few days later to say that that biopsy was cancerous. So one of my lymph nodes was inflamed and it had cancer. So then everything suddenly got very serious, and I had a PET CT scan which showed that on that it looked like it had spread into 3 lymph nodes. And so, I was called in for surgery, and I had a conversation with my surgeon before the surgery explaining what they were going to do. They were going to cut open the side of my face and neck, and it was suddenly just a lot bigger than I was expecting.
Yeah.
Down my neck, they were going to remove, he estimated about 45 lymph nodes, some of the muscle in my shoulder. It's kind of a hairy area. There's a lot going on in the neck, so it was a bit of a concern. I could have lost the ability to raise and lower my shoulder. I could have lost the ability to control my mouth, like one side of my mouth. So it was suddenly, and I was by myself in this meeting because of COVID. I wasn't allowed to bring a sport person, and it was just suddenly a lot bigger than I was expecting. Like I was looking at, I might not be able to smile anymore. I might not be able to talk properly. So I did put it out on Facebook, and I just asked for prayer. I needed a lot of prayer as I was feeling very anxious, and everyone responded. The prayer flooded in, and I have never felt the peace of the Lord the way that I did in that. Suddenly my fear was gone. Whatever was going to happen, the Lord was with me. And
wow, that is incredible, because another part to the story is that you're a mum of 3 kids, and they would have been quite young at the time. So alongside your own fears of what's going to happen to me, you might have been thinking of your family as well. I mean, how did it impact them in the process as well?
I think fortunately they were so young that they didn't really know what cancer was, that it was risky. So for them it was kind of a nice time, because people were sending us meals and gifts and flowers, and it was actually like, oh, this is lovely.
Yeah, understandable.
The night, before I went into my surgery, I did write them all quite a long letter just in case something went wrong. I'd never had surgery before. I had no idea if I'd even come out of it. I didn't know. So just in case, sharing Bible verses with them and just how much I love them. And So you just to continue the story, the story arc of the journey. So you went in for the surgery, but it didn't end at the surgery, did it? No. So I had the surgery. They ended up removing 71 lymph nodes from my face and neck, and part of my parotid gland, which is what controls saliva. I ended up losing a jugular vein, some of the muscle in my neck, so I've got kind of a, hollow now. But then because it was, they found out there were 11 lymph nodes involved, it was considered stage 3C cancer or melanoma, and so I could have had radiation, but it doesn't have a very good success rate. It's only about 10% improvement of your odds or something, and only in that specific area. And if the melanoma has travelled anywhere else, it doesn't affect it. So my dad had sent me a whole lot of information about immunotherapy, and so I investigated that, and unfortunately it wasn't funded for my stage of cancer. Pharmac was funding it for stage 4, but not for stage 3. So we had to find the funds, which was about $103,000.
Wow.
And we were wanting to start that just a few weeks after the surgery. So that was a whole nother thing we were looking at, like, okay, how do we just suddenly come up with $103,000 in a month?
Yeah.
But the Lord provided just absolutely miraculously. So half of it ended up being covered by insurance, by our trauma crisis insurance that we had. And then my husband's work actually paid the rest of it, the difference. They just were just so generous and kind. And
yeah, that is a miracle.
That
really is. So, you talked about God's peace during this time, having a real sense of that. But at the same time, did you feel an anger? Why is this happening to me? Were there any of those sorts of feelings going on?
There wasn't. I felt silly that I hadn't gone and got it checked out when I first noticed it. I felt angry with myself for putting it off. But I wasn't angry at God. I'd actually just like earlier that year been going for my morning walk and praying that the Lord would give me strength of character and wisdom. There were two traits I felt like I was lacking. I didn't feel like I had a good, strong character. And so I felt like this was an opportunity for him to grow me in those two areas. And he just the way he provided with the finances, like that would have been so stressful if we were trying to fundraise with Give a Little or something, which we were looking at before Paul's work volunteered to pay it. Yeah, but he took that stress off us, and so I just had to travel through it, and I just felt like he was right there holding my hand, leading the way, and I really felt the prayers of everybody. Like because it was COVID, everyone was at home, and so I feel like there was just a lot of prayer going into my situation, and I really felt the effect of that prayer. It was powerful.
That is, and what a good reminder, I think, just talking with you today about the power of prayer.
Yeah.
So thank you for mentioning that, because I think sometimes we think, well, what will my prayer do?
Yeah.
Well, you felt it.
I really felt it, yeah.
That's incredible.
I feel guilty in a way because I felt like the journey was almost easy because I was just lifted along in God's hands on prayers of, my fellow saints. It was,
What a journey. So you were able to get this funding for immunotherapy.
Yeah.
And I think that's a whole other avenue we could talk about, because that is something that, has only just become available to other Kiwis. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it was available for stage 4, but just last month I think they've announced that Pharmac is now funding stage 3 melanoma, which is wonderful because 300 people die of melanoma every year in New Zealand. It's actually a really huge killer of New Zealanders. So to have that funding that's just going to take the stress off so many people and give them so many more years of life.
Yeah, good news, and praise God for that. So the treatment from there on in, how long did that take before you were considered cancer-free? Can we even say that? Can I say cancer-free?
You can say NED, which is no evidence of disease.
Okay.
So I have no evidence of disease to date. So I did 11 months of immunotherapy. It was called Keytruda, and that was just once every 3 weeks. I went in and had an infusion for an hour or so. And then after the 11 months, we stopped that, and I've just been having CT scans. They started quite frequently, and then my last one was just a couple of weeks ago, and I'm hoping it's my last one ever. So I'm waiting for the results of that. But if it is, then, my surgical team will dispense with me. I'll be sent back to my GP, and I'm no longer under their care, considered, I guess cancer-free. I think you kind of wait until the 10-year mark to be officially considered cancer-free, but 5 years is a good milestone. Yeah.
Oh, Emma, this is an incredible story. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time about it, so finally had the opportunity to do so today. Before we wrap up, I know there's a lot of people listening today. Cancer may not be the thing that they're facing, but they're facing a really big challenge. Now, I know that you wouldn't consider yourself someone to be doling out advice, but for you and your journey and facing it with God, what would you say to people during that time, or during this time, if indeed they are facing something big in their lives?
Well, I wouldn't want to go through it again. I'm really glad that I did go through it. It's actually a really beautiful memory in my life.
Wow.
And I mean, I really wouldn't want to go through it again. I'm really hoping that my my results are free. But if you are going through it, ask for prayer. I think a lot of times people keep these journeys to themselves, but prayer is powerful, and it really was the thing that made the difference in my journey. So get the support of your fellow believers. God is so good. And I don't exactly understand how prayer works, but it does something because I've felt it. Yeah.
Emma, thank you so much for being in the studio, for sharing your story today. I so appreciate it. And and we'll be praying that this latest CT scan actually shows that, yes, you are now cancer-free. We'll be praying for that for you. Thanks, Emma.
Thanks, Di.